the diaphragm. It gets pushed up out of the way. It's unable to function correctly. We don't normally think of the diaphragm as an important muscle when we're talking fitness, but I really do. I'm coming to believe more and more, as the more I learn, the diaphragm is one of the most important muscles to your overall fitness. It is the connection between your breast to the core to the pelvic floor, and that drives everything else in your body. So if that piece isn't working the way we want it to be working, the rest is not going to fall into place the way we want it to. Then we go down to the bottom of so the diaphragm is kind of the top of the core. If we go down to the bottom of the core, that's your pelvic floor. The pelvic floor has had an immense amount of pressure down from the growing baby. So even if you had a C-section birth, there's still some like overall trauma to the pelvic floor. It's been handling a lot of pressure. And we'll talk more about these like idea of cheater muscles in a minute, but as the baby grows and as the abs stretch out big time, the pelvic floor might be doing some extra work as a spinal stabilizer and doing extra work to support the core. And a muscle that gets overworked can lead to problems. So yeah, we know the abs get stretched out big time, but it doesn't just mean we need to work on our abs after having the baby. We need to address some of the things that happen on the other side of it. Because the abs weren't really doing their job, the lower back had to overwork to compensate for the abs for spinal stability. It had to handle the growing weight, the change in center of gravity in front of you. Your hip flexors also had to take over a little bit for the abs in creating the pelvis and spinal stability. So we need to kind of quiet those down and allow the muscles we want to work, like the glutes and the hamstrings and the adductors, do their jobs. It's not just the core and pelvic floor are the root of it, but it comes out into the rest of the body. These changes in posture we want to address. We need to make sure that the core is fully aligned, the core being the diaphragm, the abs, and the pelvic floor working together. And just because we need to talk about a couple more things, just layering it on, the hormones that have been raging through your body, they make you cry at the drop of a hat, but they also contributed to some significant ligament laxity during pregnancy. That was a good thing for a lot of reasons, but that does not just immediately go away postpartum, especially if you're breastfeeding. Those hormones do drop like a lot. Remember those night sweats in the first couple of days right after having the baby, but especially if you're breastfeeding, stay elevated for a certain amount of time. That means that because everything is lax and loose, your strength matters. The overall strength of your body matters even more when you're loading it to do things like running. And just as a reminder to give yourself grace in the process, you're also have the stress of taking care of a whole new human. You have the stress of sleep deprivation. Reminder that exercise, although it feels wonderful and can help with some of these stresses, is also a stress on your body. So just being careful that you're not layering on the stresses beyond what your body can handle.
All right, so now let's imagine running on that body. We have our abs stretched out, they don't just automatically go right back. We have our low back tightened, we have the ribs flaring out. We have hip flexors that have been working overdrive with the low back to maintain some stability here. So our glutes are really not doing their job. We have kind of something like this, right? Seems a little bit far-fetched, but let me just quickly switch to a shot of me running like that. It doesn't look all that unfamiliar. Okay, so imagine running like that. We cannot get power through the glutes. We're going to have low back pain. Our pelvic floor, which is still recovering, is going to have even more pressure down. So we can't just focus on getting our abs to work and doing pelvic floor. We need to get it all together. So releasing and relaxing those hip flexor muscles and getting the adductors and the glutes back on board so that we can run with this stacked position with driving power through our posterior chain. That is a full integrated strategy, core, pelvic floor, and everything else that we work through in the postpartum foundations course.